Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the MSP Initiative Live. We're almost at the end of October. I know certain people love Halloween as their favorite holiday, including Sade, who's on the back end of the screen here. I know she loves Halloween. She probably has her whole house in Halloween garb. Don't lie. Be honest.
Guilty, but that's
Yeah.
because it's the best holiday ever. It's my Christmas.
Your Christmas. So how do you characterize the best holiday ever using another holiday?
Because typically most people favor Christmas. So, there's like that spirit that people talk about. Well, that's me on Halloween.
I see. Well, my favorite holiday is the 4th of July, but who's counting anything? All right, here we go. Who doesn't love although you could probably do some Halloween fireworks. Why not? Can make it happen. MSPinitiative.com is where you're going to find out everything that we do and everything that we plan and everything that we kind of put together. So this session and every other session, some pretty damn good ones, are available on this site in podcast and video format. We have our very last MSP community block party. And just because it's the last one doesn't mean it's the least one. It's actually the biggest one. We'll be flying in the All-American Rejects. That's right. That band you've heard on the radio forever and ever for a private concert for the MSP community. And of course, 3 venues, a Ferris wheel, a whole lot of beverage, and a lot of networking. So if you're in and around Florida area on November 9th, which is a Wednesday, coming in for conferences. It's a very busy week with a lot of events going on down in Orlando area. Just Florida in general, actually. Join us. You don't have to be attending any of the other events to come into the community block party. You do have to register. So if you scroll down this page, you'll see how you can register and get your ticket. So definitely come and join us. It's going to be a great time. Last year, we had a little over 1,400 people at this event. We expect more than that this year. So very interested in making sure everybody's able to come and join. And then the last thing is the very last Channel Strong tour. We actually have our very last stop on what we call week 7, because we have planned 8 of these this year. So if you're in Irvine or around LA area today, definitely come out to, and you're an MSP, come out to the Channel Strong tour stops. The last one. It's a nice day today here. I think we're gonna have close to 50 people there, but the more the merrier. Just go to mspinitiative.com. Under Channel Strong, you'll see Irvine, California today, October 20th. And then we finish our last Channel Strong tour week in the very end of November. So the 28th, 29th, 30th, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Orlando. And then on a Friday, December 2nd, Atlanta. And then we are closing out the 2022 edition of the Channel Strong Tour. So hopefully between those things, you guys can run into us in person. Definitely would love to see you guys before the year closes out. So yeah, welcome to Thursday the 20th. Of course, have some people here on the call live. No guests today, so it's kind of an open radio day. I know Matthew Fox, I always like to pick on you, but you're always building cool things underneath the hood. And I always catch you during lunchtime for some reason. You're always eating a sandwich or something.
I mean, you're always broadcasting at 1 p.m. for some reason. It's
1 p.m. is a good time, right? Because
it's an excellent time.
You're not catching people on the way home, and you're not bothering people on the way in. And it's like right at 12 noon lunchtime. So you got to get it in somewhere, unless I start doing these on Saturdays and Sundays. I mean, I don't know who would show up though.
I mean, look, I think that we're around the same age, and I'm sure that even as adults, we're still mourning the loss of Saturday morning cartoons.
I agree. I try and recreate that with my really young, 1 and 3-year-old children. And I try and bring back the old cartoons kind of, because the new ones are a little bit, just
I don't know about you, but I need the Snorks in my life.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I mean, of course, you got, all the, the services, right? HBO Max and Netflix and all this have like the children category, and like all those cartoons we grew up on are available. So I try and like school them on the stuff that we grew up on. Although my 3-year-old loves like, Peppa Pig and Daniel Tiger and, a bunch of these other kind of nouveau kids shows. I'm like, Daniel Tiger, I was like, I had Mr. Rogers, I had the guy, right? Like Daniel Tiger's like the cartoon spit-off,
It's like, I don't have kids, but in my head, I'm a million miles a moment. I'm just imagining you being like, all right, kids, you're going to learn something today. There was a time in history where Fruit Loops only had 3 colors.
Right?
Things have changed. You don't understand how easy you have it. You've got grape and some kind of green color. I don't know what color green is. We only had yellow, orange, and red.
I feel like they cheat, Matt, because like Fruit Loops and Cracker Jacks look pretty much identical, and I feel like they just like finish the Fruit Loops run, put the Apple Jacks run in, then go back to the Fruit Loops. Like I would think that would be interesting if they would ever mix those. But yeah, I hear you.
All right. Well, none of that had anything to do with technology, but
No,
the fact
not
is
at
we got
all.
to talk snorts for a moment, and that's a beautiful thing. How have you been? If there's no topic today,
Well, I'll tell you.
love to know how you doing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking. It's been a travel heavy few weeks for me. So bouncing around, a lot of spots, including a quick trip over to the UK last week. And then this upcoming weekend, actually, right after this, I'm going to start to pack up and start moving my way to an airport. Surprise, surprise. I'll be flying out of Newark today to go over to Malta, which is a country over there for people who don't know, in the EU off the coast of Italy. And I'm in Malta for like literally 2 days, and I come back home and start all over again. So yes, I am racking up the travel miles. My biggest year traveling was like 2017. I did like 239,000 miles in the air, and then in another like 35-ish thousand miles behind the windshield. And kind of reminds me of those days, not gonna lie.
We're going to have to update your business card so it says George Bardissi, internationally known.
Remember Carmen Sandiego, where you had to figure out where she was?
Where in the world
Back
is
in
George
time to like the
Bardissi?
old school cartoons.
There you go.
Where in the world, right?
That's great, man. I saw that you had a post on LinkedIn where I think you had pizza overseas, and I was wondering about that.
Well, it was funny because I went over to, actually I'm wearing their shirt now, the network group. It's a cool little like buying group and peer group over in the UK. And shout out to my good friends over there, David Tulip and Helen and Olivia, and thanks. Yes, it is a rugby shirt because we were at a rugby stadium, and of course Perry. Yeah, so first time I was over there with this group in person, they do like a quarterly thing. And so they rented out, not a whole stadium, but they rented out space in a rugby, like the home of rugby in the UK. And like kind of had to like bring my NFL roots over, right? I was wearing my Eagles jersey, don't hold it against me. And then like, kind of learned a little bit about the rugby game, which apparently is like all the rage. And then, so they had like this gala and awards thing. And of course, it's like a real formal dinner, sit down, everybody's wearing, the black tie, tux type thing, or, whatever, dress up. And I'm going to be honest, right? Maybe it's in a very American, way of thinking, but portions in the US are pretty big, right? Like their large is our small, right? Like
Absolutely.
That's the best way for me to say it. Yeah, well, I like to eat, but anyway, so their large is our small, and I was like, oh, this is good, but not a ton. So I'm thinking, and then they put a message out saying that once the formal gala part was over, the bar at the hotel, which is the practice everywhere worldwide, let's be fair. So the hotel lobby bar was open until 3 a.m. So I'm thinking to myself, there is no way these people are going to make it to 3 a.m. at that bar without something else. So very classic George American-ish move. Found a pizza place that opened the latest, ordered 25, 30 pies, did the, surprise pizza drop. And apparently not a single slice was left. Surprise, surprise.
That's a beautiful thing. You were just looking out for them and their well-being. with
Exactly.
delicious,
Exactly.
delicious cheese. I mean, what better way to look out for
Oh
someone's
no,
well-being with cheese?
listen, I went crazy. I went all sorts of toppings. I wanted to make sure everybody had a full range of options. So, that was great, right? Kept people like, from, over boozing,
Mhm.
and make sure that they had something going into, the 3 a.m., kind of bar shutdown. And so I felt like I at least contributed, right? Because, otherwise, I just would have been another guy in line, chatting it up. So
No,
love
I
the
think
people.
we all have to do our part to make
Oh, yeah.
everything as successful and as safe and as
Like-
enjoyable as possible. You helped that experience. You enhanced it with cheese and sauce and carbs. And I can't think of
Well, you gotta
a
put some
trinity of
pepperoni in there.
things. Okay,
You gotta
that's
have
fine. That's
pepperoni.
fine.
You can't
Okay,
just go.
that works.
I mean, I did cheese, but I got pepperoni. I didn't do Hawaiian. I still. like
That's a polarizing pizza.
I know. I can't do it. I know people love the Hawaiian thing somewhere somehow. I never got into it. I still can't figure that out. But so I did almost everything but that one, and it's cool group over there, right? I love hearing. I know we're polarized here, inside the country, but I love hearing like the outside of the country kind of view. Kind of bouncing around the world a little bit. So it's always nice to kind of get the other side and how they see things and what's happening in their world. So no, it was good. It was a good trip. I actually, noticed today that the prime minister over in the UK resigned. I think she only had like a 2-month run.
That was coming for
I
weeks.
guess they got their own problems.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Everything always looks greener on the other side of the fence, right? And then you hop that fence and you realize you just stepped in something. That's the way it works.
They are bracing for a hard economic drop. You want to call it recession, depression, I don't care. Figure out the word that, like I think they feel like we're going to have it easier than they intend to see it. That's the general opinion I got from most. So they're definitely gearing up for that. They think it's going to be a tough winter.
I think 2023 is going to be a very interesting year globally. It's not just about one particular market or area. I mean, it's going to be, what it is? It's couple of asterisks with a period in the middle is the group that we're looking at that's going to be impacted over the next year. Everybody.
Yeah. And like their big concern over there, and, obviously with everything happening, I guess, in Ukraine and all the trickle effect that occurs from like the whole energy market over there, like their energy bills, like are going to skyrocket and like already are. And like, we don't even think about that. Like we look at the gas price and like, I know a lot of people still use like home heating fuel, stuff like that. And like over there, right, their gas has always been expensive, right? Like, so like they buy fuel in liters, right? Not gallons. And so that's like their price. They're like, well, that's always been our price. But like now their price is creeping to the point where like even they're expecting like Azure and AWS and Google and like all the other private cloud providers to jack up just even technology as a service, like cloud hosting, private cloud, that stuff.
Yeah,
Like jack those rates up because
the pricing on the dependencies are increasing. If you're baking a cake and your flour becomes more expensive, the cake's going to become more expensive.
Exactly.
That's all there is to it. And that's gosh, I got to get a new heating system this winter. Now you're getting me nervous.
Yeah, well, I myself, like, I around my little town, they were digging up all the streets, and I'm like, what's going on around here? And so the gas company was replacing all the gas mains. I guess there's a leak somewhere, and they just decided to finally replace the lines, which they don't do often. And so I'm asking myself, I'm like, so if there's gas here, why am I still buying oil? And so like, I'll call up the gas company. I'm like, so how does this work? And they're like, oh yeah, it's simple. We'll do all the construction for absolutely nothing, but you have to convert at least your heater within 1 year after we're done doing our job. And I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. And then you realize, oh, it's not so easy to just like replace the thing and then all of a sudden you're on gas. It's a little bit of a project.
Yeah, it's a significant one. It was something I was looking at for myself too. I mean, I guess we're kind of going off the rails here, but if you didn't have a topic,
hey, it's an open mic day. We'll talk about anything.
The furnace I have at my house it predates the house. My house was built in 1953, and I think that the furnace was built in like the 20s. It was originally a coal burning furnace that was retrofitted to burn home heating oil.
There it is.
It is scary. It looks like.
And I wanted to retrofit my home heating oil to do gas, and apparently that can happen, but not every HVAC company out there is going to do that.
Exactly, but it's definitely things I think a lot of people are starting to look at right now. I mean, even just the bump in efficiency from replacing the burner in my heating unit that I have right now. It's made a significant difference. And with the idea that I think I heard something about home heating oils going up as much as 35%, 30% or something like that this season.
Yeah.
It's going to be
It's,
something to
I
keep
mean,
an
listen,
eye
it's
on.
unavoidable. I mean, I think I'm surprised that like they worked really hard, whatever they did to get the gas prices down, but they're already on the way back up. Like, so it's like a small, kind of like this.
Well,
And
there's also the restriction of the flow from other countries right now. I mean, the number of millions of barrels per day being produced had dropped significantly, or will be
well,
dropping
it's a
significantly.
little bit of politics, I'm sure, in the middle of
Yeah.
everything, but like, and again, I don't want to go too far down that road because we could go off the rail, but like if we got the energy here, I really think we should start figuring out a way to tap in. Because if you're at the
Absolutely.
mercy of other people, bad things I think can happen.
Don't we spend the majority of our lives trying to be independent?
I thought so. I mean, we definitely left the Brits and there was like a war and everything. And then I don't know. I guess this global economy thing isn't as all it's cracked up to be, but I digress. Like the world is definitely at that point and everybody has to figure out the game, which comes back to a little bit on the technology side, the supply chain side, right? We're still, they passed this CHIPS Act, right, to start manufacturing all the processors finally in country. Of course, that doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take them a while.
It'll take time, but it was really
Yeah.
great to hear. I think it was Micron is opening up a factory in upstate
and
New
Intel
York.
in Ohio. Yeah.
Those are great names. Micron is one of those brands that I feel like is always hovering in the background. I remember hearing about them for the first time from my math teacher in 9th grade in high school. We were configuring a machine for me. And Mr. Johnson, he's the man. I remember him handing me a magazine and going, if you see something that says 686, just don't trust it. I don't know about these Cyrix people. Just go with a Pentium, please. But we used to sit down after pre-calc and go through things like that. And I remember Micron, it was like Micron and Crucial were the two brands that he was looking
Which
at.
I think they're now the same brand, same company. Yeah.
It's interesting just even to think back that many years, 1996. We're in 2022.
I know, but time flies. Time absolutely flies. Which, let me get on another topic for a second, back to traveling. So for forever, I would fly into another country and just buy a SIM card, like literally out of a vending machine or in an airport, and just like pop it in and you're good to go, right? And then like I would forward my cell phone number to like my VoIP number, because obviously then I can just get those calls, on the app, and then I'd be pretty much good to go, right? And then, that would be good for like extended trips, right? You're going for more than a few days. And then like you end up paying like 25, 30 pounds, or for example, or, less than what you would pay for international roaming with your carrier. So that's all fine and well. There was always a trick though, right? If your phone was too new, you had to call the carrier to get the device unlocked. And like, if it, they would not unlock it, like you had to wait like 60 or 90 days after you got a phone before they would unlock it or whatever. Right. So fast forward to present day on the newer phones, like on the iPhone 14, I haven't got one yet, but there is no SIM port. It's like an electronic SIM.
So is it kind of almost closer to where you would have values assigned to a phone on a CDMA network where there's no physical card to be swapped out?
So like apparently you can have multiple, like I haven't tried it yet because it's all new. Like you can get you can subscribe to a SIM through another carrier and like download it to your phone. Apparently like if you get the retail package, you can scan the QR code and it would actually load the URL to download the eSIM onto your phone. And then you can like prioritize which network is like your primary and your secondary so that you can actually flip in between carriers. I just haven't tried it yet. But I was like, they're making it a little bit harder to just pop in a SIM card, which apparently is obviously more of a
it's easier to exploit thing, right? As well. I mean, it's a physical device that can be modified and,
that too.
Things can be done with it.
I was like all the carriers have some sort of international plan. I'm on AT&T, excuse me. And it's like $10 a day. And then what they do is they have roaming agreements where they flip your cell phone onto whichever network is the strongest. It's almost like Wi-Fi. And, basically you're just flat fee, $10 a day, unlimited, whatever. And I was really worried because pre-pandemic, when you would do those international plans, you would get like really slow speeds on the other side. Like if you're on 4G, you would get 3G. And nobody wants the slower speed, right? And that was part of the benefit of getting the SIM card when you get off the plane. Surprisingly, and again, I was only over in the UK for like 2.5 days. It was 5G speeds practically the whole time. So I was really kind of surprised that like they kind of removed that lower speed thing.
That's
and then
that's a pleasant surprise, but it could also be the removal of old carrier equipment and other things, right? Over time, simply being improved. But to know that you're going to have a reliable speed that's not going to be kind of like down a
and
tier.
like you would see in the left-hand corner of the screen when it would switch networks, because it would tell you which cell phone network you were on, even though it still say AT&T in the corner. And then, so I was going through and I was like, how does this all, like, what's the deal? So apparently, if you get another provider, whether it's a physical SIM or eSIM, I haven't done the eSIM, but I've definitely done like switch out the SIM card. And of course, some cell phones you can do more than one SIM card. Mm-hmm. That breaks a whole nother story out. But so the cell carriers in the US don't charge you for receiving when you're out of the country. It's only for sending, right? So if you disable your data, your 4G, 3G, 5G data setting on your phone, and you pop another card in there from another carrier, and then you have both going, any text message that comes in, any phone call that comes in, that doesn't cost you anything. Like incoming doesn't, as long as you don't answer, and you'll get all that stuff incoming. And if you switch your primary dial out and your primary data to the other, like the out of country carrier, effectively you'll still get all your messages. You can reply in a different way, right? So I thought that was intriguing. That's a way to kind of get around the international plan that all the carriers have. Like you can kind of 1-2 punch, if you would. But since I've been taking these 1, 2, 3 day trips in and out, like I just never, it didn't make sense to buy the SIM card and go through all the changes. But and I know that Google Fi, right? So if you have like the Google Pixel phones and stuff like that, mm-hmm. and then T-Mobile, who is actually a European-based company, right?
It's AG Telecom or whatever
exactly.
It is. Mm-hmm.
They already have World Plan built into their plans. So on Google Fi, you pay per gigabyte of data used when you're out of the country. And then on T-Mobile, it's part of your plan, right? You can just roam between all these countries on like part of the base T-Mobile plan. So anyway,
T-Mobile's a gigantic company. I mean, they've been around forever. I mean, when did they come to the United States? Probably around 2006, 2007, but they were already long established overseas.
Remember, they merged, but really, it's like, oh yeah, these companies merged. No, one acquired the other. So T-Mobile acquired Sprint, and then of course Sprint previously had acquired Nextel. So they kind of just gobbled the whole network up.
T-Mobile also acquired VoiceStream, and VoiceStream had acquired OmniPoint. That's when I was actually an OmniPoint customer in college, and I've had the same cell phone number ever since through those acquisitions. And real quick story for you, which is pretty sweet. There was a T-Mobile breach. I think it was like 2 summers ago. And my information
I think there was a T-Mobile breach this year. I think there's a T-Mobile breach like 2 months.
Actually, you're right. The one I'm thinking of was probably summer 2021, though. And I received a phone call from T-Mobile not too long ago. I think it was like 3 or 4 months ago. And they said, look, can you just tell us how old you are? And I was like, I'm over 40. And that's all I wanted to say. And the woman goes, okay, someone just came in here with your information. Clearly, it was not you. They tried to get a phone put onto your account. I was like, oh, did they have trouble? I'm never paying my bill. I'm the worst for paying certain bills. Certain companies like T-Mobile just never gets my money, right? And the woman goes, yeah, we actually had to have him pay in cash to settle up your bill. And then we asked for ID and we asked for the 2FA code that we just sent. And he got up and he walked out of the store. So I looked at your account and I saw that it was opened in 1999. And the person that tried to impersonate you definitely was not born at that time. And the woman goes, I'm just going to say it. The fact that you've had like a 20 some odd year account with us is the way that we prevented this from happening for you. And I was like, that's not that great. There's no workflow in place or any real verification going on that's going to trigger it. But the fact that you kind of like took that moment to think about this person you're talking to versus the records on the screen, was really cool. So thank you so much.
For nothing, right? And we talk about all these. This is the easiest way to get control of somebody's accounts, right? Because your bank accounts and your over-the-top apps and all that stuff always go back to your cell phone, right? So whether they're sending you an SMS or they're sending you an over-the-top push, cell phone. So if you can go into a store and get them to issue you a new SIM card, I have no idea how the whole eSIM thing works, but in a retail store, if you get them to give you a new SIM card, they shut off the old one and give you the new one. You effectively can just go wild, right?
Yeah, you could start getting codes for people's bank accounts and everything else that they have. You could start corresponding most likely with people that are going to be text messaging you, thinking you're the other person. I'm not saying this in a way that's me being a troublemaker, but that's something you could have a lot of fun with if that's something that you're trying to do, which I never, ever, ever.
And the problem, and the problem is, like, let's say you're just busy and you just didn't pay attention. By the time you realize that your phone's not working, and you call the carrier, excuse me, and you call the carrier to figure out what's going on, how much damage do you think they could have done?
Plenty. Look, it's technology. You can do a lot of damage in a very, very short amount of time.
So a feature that was rolled out not too long ago, I think it was like either 2020 or 2021, is you can now SIM lock your account. So you can go into the carrier's portal and, like, you know, basically put a setting that says SIM lock. And so if the retail outlets, when they go to activate a new SIM card on your account, it'll basically flag and say, I'm not going to do it because the account's locked. It's almost like you're, you know, like you freeze your credit report, right?
It's like locking a domain from being transferred.
Yeah. And then, like, exactly, locking a domain is a good example too. And like, basically, you know, like, they won't issue it until you go into the account and turn it off. So that might be, I'm sure people don't even know, a lot of people don't even know that exists, but you probably need to go turn that on by default, because I'm sure this happens way more often than you think. What was that show on USA? The one with Rami Malek, Mr.
the
Robot
hacker guy. Yeah,
Mr. Robot. I mean, like, this is the type of stuff, right? Where it's like, you don't have to get super fancy. You just gotta have to spoof somebody's identity and, like, go in and try and fake the person behind the counter out.
I mean, the most important tool to have when you're doing something like that is confidence.
True. If it sounds right and it looks right, they're not going to question it, right?
There's when we do security best practices trainings here at Valiant, sometimes I'll jump in, I'll take over if, you know, someone calls out sick or something. And there's a scene from The Big Bang Theory that I love to use to explain this, where everyone from the show sitting around the living room, you know, the main set, they're having Chinese food, and the character Howard, the guy at NASA, he's got one of those, like, kind of robotic arms, and he's using it to distribute the Chinese food among everyone, you know? And it's like, hey, where'd that come from? And he's like, NASA's JPL. And the next thing he says is something like, it's amazing what you can take out of a place if you pretend you own it, you know? And it really just came down to confidence. And I cracked up when I saw that line for two reasons. One, he's absolutely right. And two, my cousin used to be at the JPL, and we had a couple of incidences when I was young. So there was a little bit of like a flashback going on there. But at the end of the day, it really is that level of confidence that makes it.
You know, it's funny because the Eagles had somebody run out of the tunnel during the last game with the players, and, like, now they're, like, trying to investigate who this person is, right? Because, you know, that's not normal, right? And anyway, long story short, you know, back to confidence, right? Like, the guy just rolled out onto the field, nobody stopped him. So back to your point, Matthew, I guess you're muted there, but on a flip
Sorry,
side,
didn't realize I was muted there.
No worries. Yeah, so I thought that was funny, right? Dude just walked right out into the field. Like, they said, there's, like, people, like, zooming in on this guy trying to figure out who he is. And I'm like, well, how many people are underneath the stadium that can just walk out of the tunnel like that? But I digress. I guess if you just walk through and nobody stopped you, then nobody stopped you.
I think you should give that a shot sometime.
No, I want to keep my season tickets. As I educated the Brits on the other side. I don't know. Obviously, they have 70 and 80,000 person stadiums for rugby over there and soccer and all that jazz. Hey, like, there's a 60,000 person waiting list for season tickets here in Philadelphia for the Eagles. I happened to be lucky and got my season tickets a few years back. I'm not interested in losing them. I always tell people, if you be like Matthew Fox, don't pay your cell phone bill, don't pay your home heating fuel, don't pay your mortgage, but you better pay your season ticket invoice.
60,000 person waiting list.
That's right.
I'm not a big fan of football, and so I'm not looking at either way. But that's such a big number. Wow,
I know.
60,000.
It's in the DNA of this town. I know other, like, the Packers, right? The kind of like the town owns the team and everybody has shares and all this. Not in Philadelphia, but it is a public asset. That's how I look at it. But yeah, it's 60,000 person waiting list, and you can will your tickets downstream. So nobody ever, like, I think they said 11 people a year don't pay their invoice, and then they give the next 11 people a shot off the 60,000.
Wow, that's the waiting list on that's just it's mind blowing. I feel like that's kind of what you hear when you think of like an organ transplant.
Yeah.
Wow,
that one's a bit more serious.
Yeah. That just the number though. Wow.
Yeah.
At some point I'm gonna have to come to Philadelphia and try one of those cheesesteaks and the donuts you're talking about.
Listen, I feel like I find myself in New York more than you find yourself in Philadelphia. So I'm going to return that favor. But yes, you always have a welcome invite, and everybody does. If you follow me online, anytime somebody comes into town and I'm around, I like to give them a little bit of hospitality. Apparently, that can somehow get me in trouble. That's another story for another day. But hey, like, if you're in my backyard, I want to take care of you. I know Philly hospitality, oxymoron when you put those two words together, but it's true. There's nice people here. And yeah, I like to take care of people. So open invite, come on down. Take care of you, man.
You can do that. And if you're ever in New York City, we're only 2 blocks away from Madison Square Garden. So we're easy to get to.
Yeah. The problem is getting into and out of the city, right? Like, as I was telling the guys in the UK, like, until I went to London, and this was like the first time I went to the UK, after I was like working, business, like professional age, because I'd gone over way back in the day with the Boy Scouts, believe it or not, in like the 90s. But fast forward to modern day, like, I had maybe got on a train in my entire life up until the point that I went to the UK, maybe like less than 10 times.
Really?
Like, wow. It was just like everybody in my part of the woods, like, drives everywhere, right? Like, there's mass transit down here. I know nothing like the MTA, it's SEPTA, right? But like, I never took it, right? So it was just faster to drive. So anyway, and then I went to the UK, and then you can't drive anywhere, right? I love when they borrowed this variable speed limit over here. They started putting it on highways, like where they change the speed depending on what section of the highway you're on and how busy it is. By the way, nobody pays attention to that. I don't know why they thought it was going to work, but like, they borrowed that from the UK, which doesn't work over there either. They never expanded the highways and the roads over there. It takes forever to get anywhere by car.
The speed limit thing makes me laugh. I mean, as a Long Islander that takes the Long Island Expressway, I mean, that's the road where someone's going to be like, well, I just tuned my car, so let's see if I can get up to 115. I'm going to be on the LA. I'll see you in a few minutes. Yeah, that's crazy. But I never thought about public transit in Philadelphia. Yeah, I mean, yes, there's SEPTA and some other stuff, but I was just thinking, I've commuted in for over 20 years into the city from Long Island, and I don't even give it a thought. It's just a part of the day.
But like, you can't, like, you can't support the number of vehicles based on the population density in New York. I get it.
No, yeah.
But like, my point is, like, I've never taken NJ Transit. I've rarely taken SEPTA, if at all. I've never taken Amtrak anywhere. So like, it's just I'm not a public transit guy. I don't know.
Gosh, there's something special about sitting on Amtrak for 8 hours on the way to, say, like Pittsburgh. It's a magical thing. It's really not.
To Pittsburgh?
Oh, I got family there, and I opened up a couple of offices for a nonprofit I used to work for. So I used to go up to Pittsburgh once every 3 months or so. And that was early on. I mean, that was, gosh, I remember there was a time just after 9/11 where we got stuck in the Philadelphia train station for like 6 hours on the way to Pittsburgh.
That's where they shot the movie.
Train ride.
That's where they shot the movie Unbreakable with Bruce Willis
and Mr. Samuel L. Jackson.
That's right. That's right. It's a great series.
I mean, look, honestly, there's a lot of great things that come from Philadelphia. I mean, honestly, as a Long Islander and as a New Yorker, I like to joke around a lot. I like to give New Jersey and Florida the business as often as possible. But, Philly, was it Rocky, right? Philly cheesesteaks. Boy Meets World. Can't forget Corey Matthews. Topanga?
Totally agree.
Come on.
Totally agree. By the way, why are you knocking Florida? That's where everybody from New York leaves anyway to go to.
Well, yeah, I figure if I knock it long enough, they're not going to welcome me down there when I get too old. I'll
No,
have to stay up here in New York. I'll be good.
they'll take you and your money. Don't worry. Actually, if you at the end, I think I mentioned it when it happened, but I think Verizon and like all the carriers in their investor reports have to like explain like where all their kind of improvements are going. I forget whether it was Q4 of 2021 or Q1 of 2022. Verizon, because I remember reading that one. Verizon came out and said that they had unexpectedly had like 600 to 700,000 subscribers move into Florida that they had not planned for, and that they had
Wow.
to emergency like build out network infrastructure to kind of
Like
bolster.
just throwing towers up and stuff just to be able to make sure people can make calls. It's such a large number of people going to any wind part of the country. That's interesting.
Yeah. So like they just had not forecasted it, had not had any plan on it, and then like had to like move money around to like put more infrastructure up.
Wow. That's I don't know. I just love giving certain parts of the country crap. It's unnecessary.
okay.
It's unjustified, but it's fun.
It's okay. You're allowed to give them crap, although they'll give you crap back. I mean,
what's the deal with Tempe, Arizona?
why Tempe, Arizona? What'd they ever do to you?
To be completely honest, it's hilarious. But I had a friend who was from there I used to work with. And one day we were watching an episode of Cops, and like every single thing happened in Tempe. And then the next episode, everything happened in Tempe again. And then I think there was a third episode, it was like someplace else, but it was like, wow, hotspot right there. That's where the party is.
Wow.
So yeah.
Let's be fair. Tempe is like next to, Scottsdale, Phoenix, right? They're all
Thank
kind
you.
of like
Scottsdale's the other one. Yeah.
That's a fun part of town. Actually,
It is.
So before I went to the UK last week, the week before, I know. University of Arizona shot ahead.
Yeah, ASU. This
I
want to what's the name of it? They're not of it Sundogs or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever
I think honestly, I think Sundogs from the Waterboy, the Adam Sandler movie. Either way,
well, first
I love
of all,
Arizona.
That was a great movie. Sun Devils. Thank you, Shada. Number one, Waterboy was great. Did you know they're coming out with another Waterboy?
I saw it on the news. I saw it on Facebook or something recently. I can't wait. I think that after everything we've been through over the past few years, a little bit of Bobby Boucher and Mama would be a perfect thing. If we can get Coach Klein, we got to get
like
Coach
20
Klein.
years later. I don't know if Mama's still around.
Mama's got the brain pains. Nah, she's got to be around. Kathy Bates is a treasure.
So so there's another Waterboy coming out. I know there's
another sister act, and then there may be another Happy Gilmore now.
I heard, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That would be something to see.
I mean, might as well throw Billy Madison in there. We'll have the trifecta.
Just pretend it's 1992 again. Rest in peace, Mr. I just went blank from SNL that passed away in the early 90s. Chris Farley. That's the only thing we're missing. That's the only thing we're missing. Chris Farley.
That would be. I think on LinkedIn somebody took.
It's the Flattery, whatever it was from that movie. Oh my gosh, that's the most
created a
beautiful
LinkedIn
thing.
profile, and he had like 200,000 connections.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, people want their brake pads, right?
Callahan brake pads.
Thank you, Callahan. I knew that it was someone that I answered to in the past with the same last name. There was a Callahan,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
I mean, and everybody needs brake pads. I mean,
who doesn't?
Just saying. Tim Tolman, I see you on here. Thanks for hosting us yesterday. I know it was a little bit tough turnout, I heard, but hey, nothing like the California sun. And then I kept on getting all these photos from people, with the border fence being right there, right? So I was making fun of them. I'm like, hey, you should go up there and just like put your hand through it, see what happens.
Well, there are two fences, and if you put your hand through both, you got a long arm. But anyway, I know it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun talking to the guys, and there were some issues with the food vendor, and some issues with attendance. But hey, it was a beautiful day. And by the way, on the phone thing, there's nothing better than my wife's on Google Fi and I'm on T-Mobile. There's nothing better than landing in Warsaw, and in 10 seconds it says, "Welcome to Poland. We've got you covered."
Yeah,
that's cool.
T-Mobile and Google Fi. Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, as a guy in the VoIP business, right? I mean, I'd always just like have the apps and we're good to go. I didn't care where I was. I just needed data. Like I would even just get a data only SIM card, right? And just roll with it. It was convenient. I'll give you that. It was very convenient to not have to like hustle and bustle and pop out the SIM card and, do all that jazz and just move on. But it's literally in the vending machine. Like, no joke. You walk into these airports, you just put your card in, out it comes, popped in, unlimited data, have a nice day. It was that easy. And I'd have one of those little, tools that, you pop out the SIM card tray on my keychain, and that was it. But I digress.
I got a quick question for you, George, if you don't mind. I've only been a part of this space for a few years now, actively interacting with people, and I don't know too much about you over the years, but have you been in telecom prior to voice over IP becoming a thing?
Oh no. Tim's cracking up in the background, I'm sure. So I started an MSP or IT company before MSPs were, marketing term. Back in like 2000, 2001. I was still in school at the time. I ran really early in my IT MSP journey. Like, hey, if it's a blinking light, we'll take care of it, marketing, kind of agenda. And like that probably was not a good idea. And if you're doing that today, I strongly encourage you to stop. But anyway, so back in the early 2000s, when like before managed services was the term, it was like, hey, we'll just outsource your IT. If there's a blinking light, we'll take care of it. Don't use that marketing in, man, please. And like people would call over just stupid things. I'm sure we all have our war stories. I mentioned the last time, the guy calling and saying his coffee, cup holder was broken, and we're like, what are you talking about? And it was a CD-ROM drive. And like people not plugging in things to the right place. And this all still happens today in just a slightly different way. But anyway, so early on in my IT managed services journey, like, let's call it like started in 2000, 2001. By the time I got to like 04-ish, 05, I had this block of customers that had, accrued, and everybody had everything for everything, meaning like there's no standardization at all. We all know that that's part of the business model, right? Like not having 40 vendors in each line item, because it's just impossible to keep up with all of them. And when I went back and I'm like, why are we not making money? Like we're not profitable. It was because we were too busy vendor managing and not charging appropriately for this. And not too far after, we realized, like we categorized, like what are the top 5, 8, 10 things that we literally were burning time on, but not actually making any money doing. So telephony and phone systems was like pretty much in, by a long shot, like the number one thing we were losing money on in the mid 2000s. It was like you had an Avaya and you had an Intertel and you had a ShoreTel and you had a Cisco and you had and I was just like, I literally could not find a way to keep up with not just the manufacturer, but the dealer or whoever the guy that sold them around the corner, like the box on the wall. And like, you just constantly had to drive somewhere in order to like, it's not the network, it's you, like that was, we laugh now, right? But there, I call those the early days of VoIP where, like broadband wasn't stable enough in a lot of areas.
They weren't stable. I mean, I remember the first VoIP system I had was running over a bonded pair of T1s.
There you go. And three up, 3 down.
Yeah. The reason I ask right now is because, obviously talking to you, which I got to tell you, it's been a lot of fun today with no real agenda or anything, but, I've got memories going through my head. Cause again, I think we're pretty much the same age. And I was just thinking, I wonder if this guy ever threw a Nitsuko down an elevator shaft like I have, or, anything like that.
I would be the guy to fall down the elevator shaft. But anyway, that's where I ran into my buddy on the line, Tim Tolman.
Oh, okay.
Based out of San Diego. And, like I ran into him because I went out into the world and said, I guess I need to adopt a solution, right? Because if I keep on just getting dragged into everybody else's mess, I'm never going to like solve this checkbox so I can actually go and do other things and like make money. And that's where I met Tim. And funny enough, that was, the platform at the time that we were both using was just way ahead of its time. And, we actually had a pretty good run. And then, of course, as all things go, bad people make bad decisions. And then, you find yourself in a bad spot, right? So when I say bad people, like, we've all had, vendors on the other side of the aisle just decide, oh, we think this makes sense. And it's like, did you talk to anyone before you came out with this policy idea, pricing strategy, yada, yada, yada? And they're like, oh no, we knew this was going to work. And we're like, that doesn't work. and like, you need to change your situation before, you know, you're Titanic. And then they're like, no, we think we're right. Okay. And then Titanic. I mean, in a nutshell, that's what happened on the back end of the 2000s. You know, when it, so, but you know, I just kind of had to adopt telephony in order to like continue down IT lane, as a competency. And obviously fast forward to, you know, 2022, you know, it's slightly changed, but the building blocks are still largely the same.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, voice as an app or as a service over the top, but like, you know, the underpinning of how all of that works is still largely the same. So that's how I got into this. And quite frankly, you know, if you go think back, Matt, all the way back to early 2000s through 2010, now, you know, through the 2010s into 2020, how, like, you can count them on your hand, right? How many, you know, IT MSP focused, you know, telephony, VoIP, UCaaS solutions out there versus just a bolt-on partner program. And it's like a direct option, you know, and they kind of have this partner thing over here, and like those two sides never really work. And then like the story is pretty common now, right? So, you know, that's kind of part of the reason why I was just like, why isn't somebody checked box this, right? Like, why is this so difficult? Well, you know, now you see the chart, right? Even Teams, even Zoom, even WebEx, all those guys, like, still single digits on the, hey, what are you using chart, right? And everybody's using a little bit of everything.
Interesting. Well, thank you. That was it felt like George's story time, and I really truly enjoyed that. And
I could talk. I gave you the very 30,000 foot summary, but yeah, it's kind of story. That's kind of sort of the story.
Interesting. It just telephony was something that was very, very fascinating to me when I was younger, and then I got electrocuted working on an Intertel Access, and I was like, no, I'm gonna just leave it to the guys like George. That's it.
Well, by the way, you got electrocuted. You know, I fell off ladders, and
it happens.
You know,
impalements, these things happen. It's a part of it.
You know, like,
I once ripped out both my thumbnails on a Mac G5 case. Oops. Yeah,
I
think
hope
about
that was yours and not somebody else's.
Oh, it was an office machine I was trying to lift, and it just didn't lift it right. It happens.
Ouch.
So, yeah. The cringe on your face when I said that was just that's going to become a GIF. That's an animated GIF right there.
Oh, that's just not right.
Yeah.
I'm sure Tim Tolman over here could tell you all those 66 blocks he cut his hands.
No. I don't want to hear about punch down tools, please. I've already got scars on my hands from those too.
Tim, come on, man. How many times did you hurt yourself doing a punch down block?
Well, you can look at my hands, and don't have video on, but yeah, more than once. But I remember good old days of H323.
Oh yeah, that was like the heyday, man. 323. There's still people that use that.
There are.
It's amazing.
I'm hearing the sound of a punch down tool in my head right now, like clunk, clunk, clunk. My hand. You just think about that blade going right into the palm. Yeah. There's a reason I got into marketing.
Oh, I mean, listen, let's be fair. I mean, you know, ever just all of a sudden you're working on some project, you look down, you're like, how did I cut myself? That happens all the time, right? Like,
all the time. In fact, here's a good one, because this is a quick story, and a lot of people have told me I'm nuts for this one. It's somehow been manufactured in my head, but I used to have two cabinets at a Globix data center in Chinatown, and their building was positioned right above, I want to see, the N, R, and W train lines, to the point where I'd be on the 5th floor of the building and I could feel the train coming into the station, stop, and then take off again. And there was a day that I was impaled in my foot by a spike that was used to secure the cabinet in place. And I mean, there's a visible scar in my foot, so it's not, a manufactured event, but I've never heard anyone that's heard that quick story about my foot being impaled from a spike that's used to mount a cabinet into the floor ever say, yeah, I've seen those before. Has anyone ever seen one of those before?
So wait a minute. In the data center where the rack goes in,
you've got your rows and your rows of racks. No, it was like a spike that was spring loaded that was designed to press itself down into the floor to anchor the cabinet into the floor itself. Like the raised floor would have areas where they would go into. And me being me, I would always lean left shoulder on the cabinet, right foot kind of hanging over the bottom ridge of where the door would be. I pulled back one day and went right through my foot, and I got stuck on the floor, and the guy in the knock saw me on the camera.
Oh,
Yeah. No, I can't. There's not a single person out there that's heard that story. It says, yes, I know the kind of cabinet that was. Yes, I know the name of the device used for anchoring. And I've always been really curious about that. And I figured, you know what? There are thousands and thousands of tech professionals are going to see this. Please,
a
someone.
spring-loaded spike coming out of the floor. It just seems like a dangerous.
Well, not out of the floor, but out of the cabinet down into the floor.
I see. Never seen that.
You know what else I had
Never.
once? I once found a package of hair relaxer on top of one of my cabinets at Globix. Pinks. Yeah. That was a weird one. That was a weird one.
It seems like this was not in a good part of town, and just bad and crazy things were happening in this building.
I mean, there was a jail across the street.
There it is.
I didn't even realize that till you said it just now. It's on Center Street
There it
in the city.
is.
There's a jail right across the street from it. But there's also a really good dumpling place across the street. I miss that neighborhood. But yeah, you know, that's
If
I
you
guess
went back now, would the dumpling place still be there? And did they pass their health check?
I would not care. It was so good. When you walk past a place called the Excellent Dumpling House, you're gonna expect excellent dumplings.
I mean,
How much more direct could they
good
get in the mail?
marketing, bad product. I don't know. You never know.
Yeah, you go to 3 more blocks down. There's the mediocre dumpling house. That's the one you stay away from.
I don't. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure
They-
anybody would brand themselves mediocre, but
More
I mean, like,
syllables means better. No.
No. Yeah. I mean, it's like any other marketing, right? It's like kind of like that marketing I told you before. Hey, if there's a
Yeah.
blinking light, we'll take care of it. Or, hey, we have a single pane of glass, and was never a single pane of glass.
No.
I digest.
boy.
I digress.
I digest. This is my lunchtime. You
digest
digress.
and digress. What did you have to get a little blood transfusion there with all that spike going through your foot?
That was it was a bad day. I did have to get a little bit of work done on my foot, and I did end up with a permanent reminder of the moment. But
I do remember
I will
those,
say,
by the way.
I'm sorry, you do or don't?
I do.
Boom! Thank you, somebody. Tim, I love you.
We've been in
That-
this for a while, and I do remember those. They were horrible.
See, thank you. That you don't understand. This happened to me in like 2002, maybe 2003. So all these years, it's been in my head. Like, what happened? Did I just fall and hit my foot or something?
So clearly Tim read the instruction manual and Matt did.
Instructions. Come on.
I can send him a copy. That's okay, no problem. Yeah, well, we've been in this since 1996, so yeah, we remember those. That was
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, that just
awful
yeah.
choice.
This hasn't just made my day. This made my year because that's been one of those things tucked away in my mind.
I would
for
have
so
been
long.
right next to you in the emergency room with the foot thing. I can see it already.
Wow.
I'm glad I didn't have to do that.
Eh,
I've
you know
definitely
what?
hurt myself on way more things, but never impaled by a spike.
Impalement's not as bad as they say it is, as long as it's not an appendage. That was
Yeah.
a dark thing to say, but it was true.
Gonna
I've been
say,
impaled.
I mean,
I've
as
been
long as
impaled a
it
few
hit the
times.
right thing.
Yeah, but you know what? I feel like that's as weird as it is to have experienced that. The time I spent in that data center was awesome. That was a
I mean,
great
imagine.
place to
I'm
work.
just thinking the job description, right? Must be able to lift 50 pounds. Must be able to walk up and down stairs, and might get impaled.
It happens. That's it. Yeah, I used to have space there, and I used to have space in the Santa Clara data center as well, which was beautiful. Globix was a really, really cool colo company. It's a shame they're no longer with us.
Yeah. Wow. Now there's a race for data center space, including people. Microsoft has put data centers under the water, I guess, just for fun. You know, they just sink these data centers and keep them cool down there. I mean, I would argue that, you know, with the energy requirements for all these, you know, computing, surely not going to be able to do that on just solar or some of these other alternative technology, you know, energy sources. But yeah, the data center, I remember before I put servers into a data center, I was like, had like a little small rack, you know, at my house, and I plugged it in. And I get the power bill and I'd be like $1,000. The hell's going on here? Stuff takes up a lot of juice.
Yeah, I got a couple of Synologies I just set up in my house for some data storage and some production work I'm doing. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't need those on 24/7. They really need
Yeah.
to be on.
$1,000 bill. First time I got that, I was like, just unplug those and call that a day.
Yeah, I held that power button down for 5 seconds.
For sure. I saw you know, a couple things on the tail end of this. I saw Jay McBain, who's now working for a company called Canalys. He was at Forrester and a couple other companies before. And this guy over in Europe was like, yeah, everything as a service is great for the vendor. It's great for the reseller or the MSP or the partner, horrible for the end customer. And I was like, huh, I've never, I think he said it's shit for the end customer. And I was like, I never thought of it from that way. So I just thought that was hysterical that this guy's like, pretty large shop over in Europe and basically said as a service is horrible for the end customer. What do you,
Did he give reasons as to why he felt that way?
I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to pull up his thing right now, but yeah, he just went off on a rant.
I just
And,
love that you had to do the air quotes with the word shit on that. That was great. I'm just in my head, and the thing is,
love the air
the guy
quotes.
was like, "Sass, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit," and that's it. And you're like,
yeah,
"Okay,
no, he definitely went straight to shit.
wow, all right,
Yeah,
that's
there you
passion."
go. I found it. Let me share. Let me continue past this here. There you go. For customers who are smoking dope. Man, this guy, I gotta look this guy up and figure out what his deal is. But says criticized as a service business model, labeling it as well. Shit. Oh, okay. And he's a Microsoft shareholder. For a corporate customer, I think it's shit. He's like, good for the channel partner, good for Microsoft as a vendor.
Wait. Can you scroll back up for a second? Who is it that
Yeah.
was smoking dope?
No, he's the same guy.
Oh, the
said,
customers. I
as a
just wanted to
service
see
good for customers.
I just wanted to see if it was customers or him that was referenced as smoking dope,
he's
because
talking
this
about
is
the
wild.
customers.
Wow.
I mean, if that's all good now, put me on that panel. I'll rock. I'll go to town with this guy. But try and keep my Philly a little buttoned up when you're in a formal environment.
Yeah,
But
we'll turn your volume dial down to like 4 or 5.
yeah. If it, I think there's only low and high on my end, but that's fine. So yeah, I'll drop this link in the chat. But yeah, definitely go back and read this one. I think it's pretty intriguing. I thought that's the first time I've seen that pop up where the guy's just like, yeah, this is garbage. Nobody wants this. And I'm like, really? Whole market's been going that way the whole time. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna want to. That's gonna be the article that I sit down with like a cup of tea tonight and really read over, because that was.
Oh yeah, I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you to go back and read that, and then you'll come back and we'll see what you think. But anyway, yeah. So gonna be an interesting end of the year, guys. Like that we went into this open session, right? Nobody today, just kind of,
Sometimes you need that.
Shoot
Sometimes you
shit.
need a wild card.
Oh yeah. Well, this is like back out on the road, right? So like, nice to recreate it here in digital land. But anyway, hope everybody's having a great day. You saw all the stuff at the beginning of this episode, mspinitiative.com. Hopefully we'll see you at that community block party down in Orlando, November 9th. If not, we'll have a lot of cool photos and videos coming out of that one. Last day, we're in Irvine today. So if you're in that area, go to channelstrongtour.com and jump in. It's a good time. And then, our last one's coming up here at the end of November. And otherwise, you'll see me somewhere out in the road causing havoc or trouble or posting crazy things online, because the world is an interesting place. And then Matthew Fox, we're going to have to find a way to get you to get a cheesesteak before the end of the year, I think. Make a special trip.
I would not be adverse to a special cheesesteak journey to Philadelphia, maybe hopping on here with you, having a cheesesteak in the background.
We can get you to a game, get you a cheesesteak, get the whole environment. Like that's when
you take me on a tour. We'll do the Boy Meets World tour. I want to see all the areas that Corey and everyone hung out at.
That's funny, by the way, because Boy Meets World was not recorded in Philadelphia, but absolutely love the fact that they were in Philadelphia on the show. But
then we also learned that the voice of Kit from Knight Rider was an actual person through that show too. So
of course, Mr. Feeney, right? Yes, yeah, exactly. Yes. It was that, I think it was the Knight Rider, was it 20th anniversary or 40th anniversary, whatever it was. And I went back and I had to binge watch a couple shows, but they tried their best with Tesla and all these other cars, but they haven't quite gotten the turbo boost down yet.
Look, it's always going to be a Pontiac that gets that right. That's all there is to it.
Just saying. All right, everybody. Catch you later. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, George.